Hi everyone, I'm Zen, your astrologer, and welcome to your horoscope for the week of February 22nd, 2021. We have a very powerful and active sky at play even in this last week of February, where we have two very powerful personal energy shifts that are definitely going to influence us in the most positive and constructive ways possible. One of these shifts is Venus entering into Pisces, a place in the sky where the goddess of love and beauty is in exaltation, so she is able to bring forward her most elevated, dreamy, magical, and romantic qualities. And this already is good news for all of us, because each and every time Venus enters in this part of the sky, it has the tendency to add a touch of color to our worldviews. So that means that all of us can be a little bit more optimistic, a little bit more dreamy, hopeful, faithful. We can experience life in a much more, let's say, magical, spiritual, deep way, but not anything heavy. But quite the contrary, in a very light-hearted manner, where moments of daydreaming, fantasies, or a romantic view of the world just makes our everyday routines, living the present moment, that much more magical, that much more Venusian, if this is an acceptable term. And of course, this isn't the only energy shift which benefits us. At the very, very beginning of the week, we already have Mercury going direct in the sign of Aquarius, a part of the sky where Mercury is also able to bring forward its highest, quickest, more scientific, rational, logical qualities. So if certain things like paperwork, communication, the flow of information, documents, legal matters, official matters, or certain important personal plans, projects for the longer term or even close term future have been stagnating, have been put on hold, or experience certain kind of blockages, well, a Mercury going direct is a really, really good energy for all of these issues to find resolution, clarity to reach us in many different ways, for us to be able to take on a very rational, down-to-earth, scientific even approach to everything in our lives. And since Mercury also meets Jupiter in the sky while going direct and ultimately moving out of shadow, this is also really good energy to infuse our mental patterns, our ways of thinking, our intelligence with a touch of optimism, a touch of faith, a touch of, let's say, idealism used in the most constructive and positive sense possible. So I would say that this is going to be the moment when finally, after such a long time of ups and downs, but mostly downs, shocks, unexpected twists and turns of events for the worse, in the sense that this really powerful battle between Uranus and Saturn ultimately deconstructs the old normality, the old worldview, how things always used to be. And of course there was that really intense square between Pluto and Mars, which was a truly wild and angry energy that dominated the second half of last year. So we are finally stepping out of the overall feeling or sensation that this is a massive crisis, and we're finally able to find the strength within, the wisdom within, the clarity within for all of us individually to start finally focusing on what matters to us the most, start, fixing our lives one way or another. And also due to another supremely harmonious celestial conversation between Mars and Pluto, as I said, Last year we had Mars squaring Pluto, so that is maximum tension, that is conflict, aggression, frustration, rebellion. And finally, we can experience the most positive side of that energy, where this time Mars and its higher octave Pluto converse in supreme harmony, and that is the infusion of courage, willpower, focus, the ability to work, sacrifice, keep on our path in order to accomplish that which we desire the most. It is the energy of breakthrough. It is the energy of profound change being installed by us, no one else, in our lives, routines, and this inner change which we made manifest in our external reality. This is going to be that personal gesture or act which is definitely going to change the overall tone. This is where individually all of us are one way or another preparing to step out of the crisis, to step out from experiencing all of this like victims. And finally, the moment has come for us to do everything within our power to make sure that we are achieving progress, breakthrough, momentum in the direction of our choosing. This is the moment when we can find inner strength, courage, resourcefulness to do and accomplish what we need to do in order to step into our futures, all that Aquarius energy, and perhaps certain things which prove to be extremely difficult, almost impossible to overcome just in a few months ago. In the second half of 2020, let's say, and up until this point, well, this is where our feelings, our faith, and naturally our sense of logic and our way of thinking changes profoundly, and we no longer perceive anything as impossible. And it is this attitude change that is definitely going to be a really powerful saving grace, because when there is a will, there is definitely going to be a way. And this energy of next week is going to show us how true this saying actually is. Also, just before the last day of February, on the 27th, we have a full moon in the sign of Virgo, and this energy can be profoundly healing on a personal, individual level, because on one hand, this reminds us of how very, very important taking care of our physical bodies, taking care of ourselves from every perspective, physically but also psychologically, making sure that our daily routines are healthy, empowering, not toxic in any way, and even our ways of thinking, even our methodologies, how we try to solve everyday problems, are actually self-supportive, constructive, positive, and naturally down to earth. So this is also the energy of grounding, and naturally Virgo, mutable earth sign, physical and practical adaptability, which means being able to implement small but very important changes in our daily routines, our daily rituals, so to speak, and these will have a really positive, regenerative, empowering long-term effect. You know, as they say, healthy mind in a healthy body. From a collective perspective, however, this full moon can complicate things a little bit, but I'll talk about this side of the full moon later on in the recording. And finally, at the very end of the week, we also have a really, really positive, inspirational, motivational energy of empowerment. For the moon in the sign of Virgo joins the trine that Mars and Pluto are holding. So this means a grand earth trine. And this can be a moment of breakthrough. This can be a moment when we accomplish something very important for us in a material perspective or in a very down-to-earth way as well. this can be manifestation, this can be also the energy of receiving help, which might easily surpass all of our expectations. But of course, even if this energy plays out as receiving help, for example, someone highly influential intervening in our cases, well, it still depends on our self-expression, because we do have to reach out, or one way or another use the energy and empowerment of Mars for that help to be able to reach us from somewhere. So regardless of how this energy plays out, even though it's a trine, so it is a blessing, we might not have to do in any other circumstances anything special, but since Mars is involved, Mars always needs some kind of action, even if that action is a psychological one. Even if that action means an attitude or being focused on a frequency on something that you desire to attract in your life, mentally or emotionally, etc. But of course, all this really positive, good, helpful, and solution-oriented energy doesn't mean that collectively we're out of the deep just yet. For simultaneously, the Uranus and Saturn square are still ongoing, they're still very powerful. So this means that certain things from a collective perspective, what happens in our countries, what happens from a socio-political, economic perspective, still has a lot of influence. And things will definitely keep on shifting, changing. This is also the energy of surprise. So basically the main theme of what astrologers have been speaking about ever since the very beginning of the year and even before that. Well, all of that is still ongoing, all of that is still manifesting. Just the big difference is that individually we can shift away from that much more easily. The Sun and Venus in the sign of Pisces are a fantastic help for this, because like it or not, Pisces is the 12th astrological house. It is the distant past, it is all the karma, all the fated events that we have to experience, all of the big closures in our lives. That is also the place of psychological detox, so to speak, where we just have to surrender certain things. We have to accept whatever happened to us in the past, especially the more uncomfortable events. This is where we find forgiveness. And this is also where we just prepare ourselves to regenerate psychologically and just open a fresh and new chapter in our lives. And both the Sun, Venus being in there at the same time, of course Neptune is also in there. This means that we are invited to prepare ourselves psychologically, spiritually, to spend time with ourselves, go within, declutter, detox, realign ourselves, or better said, align it as much as we can with our inner truth, with our faith, with what spirituality, the source, existence itself means to us. And as I said, this is a preparation because starting from May, Jupiter is going to dip into the sign of Pisces. And whatever we have prepared for Jupiter, because it will go over the degrees where the Sun and Venus are going to be at this time. And that means if we freed up some inner space, other karmic fated connections can enter into our lives, blessing us with their presence, blessing us with their spiritual contribution. Or if we have planted a lot of positive, faithful seeds of intention within our own unconscious minds, again Pisces, Jupiter can work with those and expand them, multiply them, make them grow, turn them into something real in May. Needless to say, the Sun and Venus in the sign of Pisces are also a really good period for artists, for everyone who works in a healing profession. May that be very down to earth like the medical career, may that be alternative like plant medicine or even natural supplements, spiritual. It is also a really good period for musicians. Basically, I do believe that every single category of artists and creators can easily fall into the advantaged category, because regardless how this Piscean energy will manifest in their lives, well, they can just turn it into art, into beauty, into dreams, into the kind of energy which makes them thrive, which makes them be much more alive than any time else. And also, when artists are empowered by the celestial conversations in the sky, all of us, as in humanity as a collective, are much more empowered spiritually. So this is a really good period for all of us to find peace, to do the inner work, to regenerate, to cut out the past, to close doors. And of course, Venus, find love, especially the most romantic, dreamy, idealistic expression possible. Of course, it doesn't mean that it has to necessarily last, but just enjoying those feelings, even if they're a product of one's imagination, well, that is still rewarding in itself. But also, some connections can actually last, because Pisces is a very karmic area of the sky. Very important fated moments can take place when relevant power players are transiting this part of the sky, and Venus personally, especially, is a very important planet, because that is the symbol of everything that we love, everything that we wish to have in our lives, everything that we wish to live. And this is where Pisces has no real boundaries. It is water, it is ethereal, it is dreamy. So if there is a lot of emotional energy in this part of our personal skies, well, something will definitely happen when Venus activates these energies already built up there. And by this I mean desires, dreams, wishes, a simple desire to experience what the most romantic, the most dreamy qualities of love are, is already enough for this energy to become magnetic, because Venus is the representative of the sacred feminine, so she attracts everything that she needs in her life. She's very magnetic. Mars is the symbol of the divine masculine, so Mars goes out and conquers, it does things. It creates things, so to speak. And speaking about Mars and Venus, at the beginning of the week, they do converse in a conversation of tension, which means heightened passions, which means really, really, really wanting to have experience, live your desires, regardless of what nature those are. And this energy can send a lot of sparks flying into different directions, because it is extremely heated and also very quick and spontaneous because of the Aquarian vibe. So there is a word of warning here. Make sure that your passions stay passions and don't turn into obsessions. And Venus is also money, currency, etc. So be very careful about overspending. Be very careful about what investments you make, because a rational approach has to be part of your personal equation, of your personal anticipation, because just giving into feelings is not advised right now. Also, Mercury is going to be holding the same type of conversation with Uranus, its higher octave, but the square between Mercury and Uranus is not going to perfect itself. It's not going to be that strong or influential. So this means that communication, clarity, the truth, as in practical information, might enter your life unexpectedly. And even though some might not be very comfortable because they might reflect exactly what you shouldn't really do, but you intended to do. For example, make that investment, be honest to the person who you desire, reach out and connect in a certain way. Well, if this information provided by the Mercury and Uranus square tells you not to do it right now, it's not the right time, or wait, or take a different approach, well, this is where we can tap into our wisdom. If we listen to this feedback, if we listen and work together with this energy of grounding, but not abandoning our passions and what we desire as well. So basically this means being patient, not wasting your energy, your passion, your focus, your money, and doing things very rationally in a very calculated and planned manner where the risks are also part of the deal. And from a romantic perspective, well, what this means is pretty clear. If you are that very motivated to express your feelings or find out if you have a valid chance with that very special someone, then you must also be ready to accept the version where your courage, where your initiative might not really be welcomed or not go the way you desire things to go. Now, speaking about tension, on the 25th of the month, as the moon transits the sign of Leo, it is going to be opposing all of the Aquarius planets, so mostly Jupiter, Mercury, Saturn. And this does mean a moment when all of us are going to be grounded. This is like a very down-to-earth reality check kind of moment, because it might become very obvious at that time that if we desire something very, very strongly, even if that is breakthrough, or even if that is just fulfilling a basic need of ours, well, sometimes compromises, working with what we have in our lives in the present, even if that is not very ideal, or the need to delay our plans or readjust them, reconfigure them, can be a big requirement for us to achieve that breakthrough. So this energy might be like a slap on the wrist for the darker side, the shadow expression of Virgo that all of us we embody one way or another, which is criticism, discrimination, where it is us who discriminates. But of course, this isn't like this act of discrimination being malicious or oriented to a specific person. Not at all. For example, this is like, well, I don't want to go to that job interview, for example, because I don't like the vibration of the people there. Or I don't want to get on the bus because it's way too crowded and I really don't want people to be around me. Or let's say you have like a legal problem and the logical choice would be to go to a lawyer to ask for expertise or an opinion, and you say, well, no, I don't trust lawyers, so I'll try to solve this myself if possible, first of all. All of this is the energy of splitting the hair in four, overthinking, overanalyzing. But ultimately, it's an opposition and also a T-square, so perhaps, like it or not, we might just have to work with what we have, regardless of how we feel about it. And also, this is where the future, the success, and whatever we can achieve in the future can be a really strong motivational force to just make that compromise, to just shut down the inner critic and that little paranoid voice in our head which might depict the worst possible outcomes in everything, or how uncomfortable making certain compromises might feel. But I do believe that this is definitely not going to be a big problem, because just the day before, on the 24th of February, the trine between Mars and Pluto perfects itself, and as I said, that is sheer willpower. That is conquering that which is most important for you. That is the energy of the warrior, of the passionate seeker. And this is one of those rare meetings between Mars and Pluto when, if you are truly aligned to something, a desire, a passion, whatever it is that you will and focus on, fate itself, Pluto, the power of fate, the hand of fate, the great celestial alchemist, might actually conspire in your favor because you convinced it. Or simply, when you're so focused on something that you want to accomplish, well, you can make yourself in that state of passion so very attractive, not in a romantic sense, but much more in a metaphysical sense, that whatever you need, like may that be a person of great influence, a specialist, everything that might have to do with the sign of Capricorn, they might just pop up in your life and offer you the help there and then. Or let's say that if it's like a big life change, career change, any kind of ending, completion, elimination that you're working on, well, this energy favors you even more, because all of those have to do with the symbolism of Pluto, transformation, endings, metamorphosis, the total deconstruction of, let's say, old normality and the embrace of the new one. And also, both of these planets speak from earth signs, so whenever this happens, that already means a greater chance of manifesting here on earth. It can turn into something very palpable, practical, down to earth. Then also on the 25th of the month, we are going to be having a really fortunate, lucky, celestial conversation where the moon in the sign of Pisces sextiles Uranus in Taurus. Now this energy can represent powerful epiphanies, revelations, the truth coming out, but in a very positive way, where it advantages you, it guides you, it sets you on the right path, especially for karmic things, for anything that is very important to you on a soul level, psychologically. It is a really good energy where you might find out everything that you need to do to perfect your healing journey, for example. Or Pisces is also the distant past. Communication or missed opportunities might surface from the very distant past, from the midst of time, maybe from some people who you even forgot they were part of your life once, part of your journey once. Or this can be new surprising figures popping up unexpectedly in your life who are going to be part of your karma, your soul journey. But since this is a sextile, it all depends on you. This energy just simply means that the universe, the sky, is more susceptible to your input, to your focus, to your wish, to your desire, because ultimately, for a sextile, in order to activate that energy, we do need to take some sort of action, even if that is something inner, even if that is just an attitude, a symbolic gesture. It can still work, most importantly that the sun is in the sign of Pisces. So Pisces is definitely the symbolic mind. So everything symbolic, everything spiritual, even like superstition, even though that is much more the domain of Scorpio, it works like a charm during Pisces season. So with Uranus, Uranus is epiphany. It is a moment of sudden realization. It is our inner genius, or the highest octaves of our intelligence, creating things, bringing things to us, to our awareness. It can also be like a cosmic download. It can be altered state of consciousness. It can be so very many things that weave together practical information, almost quantum information, Uranus, and the world of dreams, imagination, fantasy, faith, spirituality, Pisces, the mysterious world of the unconscious mind. So pay close attention at this time to your dreams, to whatever you're feeling, even if you feel a little bit anxious, Uranus. Well, all those things that might worry you might actually come to the surface on their own. Of course, if you're sitting down and overthinking, that is not a valid expression of this energy. It just has to come on its own. So if certain worries or fears or insecurities pop up in your mind on their own, and these have to do with at least some kind of practical elements in your life, so it's not like just a psychological energy. This has to have a certain practical applicability to it. For example, I haven't done my taxes, but it's okay because there's still a lot of time left. I haven't sent that paper or request to the bank, or anything which has at least a palpable element to it. Another example, like I haven't written back to a specific person who contacted me, or maybe you saw a cry out for help on social media or whatever, and you're thinking that maybe you should help, maybe you should message, or maybe you should just write a positive, inspirational comment. So all of these do have a practical element to them, because it means taking some sort of action. So if any worry, fear, insecurity might pop up in your mind, anything that might unsettle you a little bit, well, that is actually the most positive sign, because chances are your unconscious mind is showing you all of those matters in this way, because chances are those are going to find some kind of resolution in the close future. So this is also the energy of foresight, the energy of, let's say, prophecy, but it is susceptible to interpretation, so not to be taken literally. Anything that might pop up in your mind or during a vision, meditation, or whatever. Another expression of this energy is without a doubt some kind of clarity, which has much to do with the distant past. Maybe certain things that happened to you and you judged them in a certain way are now going to be revealed as what they truly were, giving you the chance to change your judgment, to change your perception, change your perspective, how you interpret those karmic events for you personally. And since this is a sextile, it means that through this, the big goal is to heal the past by changing the way you feel about it. So this is also a really positive energy that can basically take away or change a trauma in a very short time, because once we are able to interpret a certain kind of reality, the dimension of the past, with a totally different mindset, with a totally different state of emotional maturity than when we lived it, when we were deeply immersed into it, well then, that means that we're already transforming the past, we're altering the memory, and perhaps stripping off all those illusions or personal elements of judgment which turned it to be traumatic, negative, to produce pain, disappointment, etc. And on the world stage, this is definitely the energy of revelation, disclosure, long-term secrets coming out, even by accident, even coincidentally. This is the kind of energy which might give us a hint of what is true, untrue, or half true with all this COVID situation, where it started from, how it basically spread all over the world. And ultimately, Uranus is the power of science, rationality, empirical knowledge. So maybe this can also mean some kind of scientific research analysis, bringing an element of this whole coronavirus to the surface, where the science behind it might indicate in a very clear manner where it could have come from and where it is that it simply couldn't have sourced from regardless of the scenario. And finally, on the 27th of the month, we're going to be having a full moon in the sign of Virgo. This full moon trines Uranus, so it can be something which comes as a very pleasant surprise. Especially from the individual perspective, it may be that something that we have done, something that we have been working on, something that we have emphasized in our lives simply comes to fruition, it manifests. We get some kind of rewards for our work, for our efforts, where it is that we placed our especially intellectual and mental energy, that Uranus. This energy is also very good for job seekers. Opportunities might come as a surprise, as a delight. It is also a strong psychological energy of regeneration, as I said, taking care of your physical body, making sure that you have healthy, self-empowering, and also practical routines, rituals in your life, in your everyday program. This is also a really good energy for detox. It is also a very good energy to quit certain bad habits. And of course, if you had some kind of medical problems for some time now and they didn't get better, this is a really good opportunity to go and get it checked. And at this time, the moon forms a quincunx, a minor astrological conversation with Saturn and Mercury. So this also means the power to adapt ourselves and our daily routines, make changes even in our comfort zone, creating new schedules for ourselves, perhaps introducing new routines which we have never done before, new routines which serve our physical bodies, like exercise, doing something physical to distress yourself, healthier way of eating, for example. And as always, this is a really good time for any kind of spiritual activity which has to do with healing, regeneration, accepting the past or releasing the past. And with this Uranus trine, this is where your body, your physical body, can have an intelligence of its own, where perhaps maybe whatever foods, nourishment that you crave is what your body needs the most at that specific time. And also, your body, your physical body, can give you certain signs where you can just take them into consideration, and over time you can just learn how to interpret the messages of your body, where in the future, for example, just a simple little feeling will be more than enough for you to get your body's message and go and do it. For example, if you are craving food or a taste or something, just, psychologically, because you are after the taste, really, you are after the happiness hormones, but not the nourishment, the food itself, your body can actually turn into a really good ally, because it might just emphasize the sensation that your stomach is already full, and that leads you to a much greater power of self-discipline when eating. This is just one of the examples of how cooperating and being your body's ally can actually improve your life, improve your everyday routines for the long-term future. Now, on the world stage, collectively speaking, this energy might be a little bit controversial. One of the symbolism of Virgo is the living earth. So that means microorganisms, germs, microscopic life more than anything. And Virgo is also a mutable, flexible, adaptable earth sign. And if we add these two together, well, it can mean a certain kind of mutation. This might signify the third wave, and I really don't want to bear any bad news. This is just one of the ways it can manifest, so it's not set in stone. And let us also not forget the trine with Uranus. So even if it means that the coronavirus situation or the microbe itself, the virus itself, mutates further or takes a different turn, we also have the scientific research, our minds as a collective, that Uranus there. So a solution is definitely gonna appear with the speed of light. And of course, this might also take a totally different turn, where so very many solutions, ways of adapting to the coronavirus situation appear due to scientific research, due to brainstorming, due to a lot of effort that was put into this. Again, Uranus in the sign of Taurus. That the problem will not be the coronavirus situation anymore, but which solutions are much more ideal, better, more efficient, much more Virgo-like, as in they can solve the problem quickly and effortlessly. And another side to this energy, as I said, it's discrimination. And this is where perhaps how this is going to play out. Who receives the vaccine, who doesn't receive the vaccine, who the legislation discriminates, for example, which social category, etc. So there are going to be a lot of discussions, a lot of contradicting ideologies. But that part, as I said, it's the ongoing Saturn and Uranus square, so it's really part of the story. And also, on the very last day of February the 28th, as the moon advances further into the sign of Virgo, well, as I said, it's going to be holding trines with Mars and Pluto. And what this means collectively, well, that is breakthrough. Even 10 million different solutions are still better than no solution at all. If the big problem is which solution do we adapt from many, well, that is still really good news, because it means that we can overcome the challenge, there is hope for the future, and we can feel and experience what this new normality means for us personally in our everyday lives, finally in the more positive sense. This is where we can truly harvest something positive from everything that we have went through collectively in this very fated year 2020. We know so very well everything, every little thing that we have lost or had to sacrifice, or this world crisis took away from us and our lives. Perhaps some of them permanently, some parts, some elements of this old normality are already history, so they're not gonna come back in our lives the same way, that is certain. And that also involved a lot of suffering, or us having to somehow accept this truth, cope with it, survive challenges the best we could. And this is where finally the very, very first signs of what we gained, of the blessing in all of this, the more positive sign, can show up in our lives also in a very practical manner. Now, collectively, for example, when we were in lockdowns, when we were locked up and we couldn't leave the house for more than a couple of minutes or whatever, we saw without a shadow of a doubt that nature in a couple of weeks regenerated herself in a manner that just blew our minds. So that part of the blessing was undeniable by anyone. Yes, maybe we human beings suffered on so very many different levels, but at the same time our home, nature, the earth, received a big blessing. So, it was, from this perspective, definitely worth it. And if we somehow translate the symbolism of this into our personal lives, where there are bound to be some kind of blessing that we received from this whole COVID crisis. For example, it might be purely psychological, that we spent a lot of time with ourselves and we became best friends. And those people who used to fear solitude and loneliness are now living a totally different way of existence. Or let's say a person who used to have a very, very busy job, career-oriented lifestyle before the COVID situation. And they sacrificed their time on earth, their time to experience life in so very many different ways. And because of the restrictions, or maybe they lost their jobs, they, like it or not, experienced what it's like to have all the time for yourself without that duty, responsibility, etc. And they found this a major blessing because they also reconnected with themselves, maybe with their passions, hobbies, their love life took a positive turn. Or, for other people, maybe this was like an invitation to reinvent themselves and how they used to do everything in life. So this energy could have blessed us in so very many different ways. And Virgo is also the sign of servitude, work, what we offer to the collective, to the world. So without a doubt, most of us, one way or another, figured out what is the most valuable, what is the most constructive, positive, divinely gifted talent or trait that we have came in this life with. And that means that our own individual unique ways, all of us kind of already know what it is that we can offer the world, the universe, how we can make the lives of other people better, more beautiful, more magical. And all of this in a surprising way, because Pluto in Capricorn, Pluto is transformation, deconstruction of Capricorn, as in how we always used to do this, how we used to sell our time, sell our energy, or that our missions in life have to also material support us, as in turn it into career. This is where all of everything that happened, the COVID situation and all of its implications, might have told us, well, you don't necessarily have to link it with money, with survival, with livelihood. Some people have such a unique gift that it cannot be sold. For example, those people who make people laugh, smile, who just brighten up the day of everyone that they just come across. Well, how can you sell that if that is why your soul incarnated here, by your sheer presence and by your, daily average interactions to just be a positive force in the life of other people, even total strangers, just a smile on the street or whatever. If that is your mission, well then that might not have absolutely anything to do with your income, livelihood, career, etc. So this great pause was truly a divine invitation to go within ourselves and discover who it is that we truly are and why we came in this earthly existence and also this specific timeline. Why did we come here? What it is that we need to do, and what is that is totally optional, that is only a matter of our preferences, choice. And I do think that one of the key things that all of us, regardless of who you are, where you are, how your past was, how your education was, regardless, is the sanctity of the time we have on this earth, which is finite. So this was a massive wake-up call to be much more responsible and also diligent, maybe from not a strictly human perspective, or not from a perspective that every human being can comprehend and process, but still, most of us can, that it is our greatest responsibility. Saturn, last year in Capricorn, this year in Aquarius, of what we do with our times, what we do with our earthly existence, because it has to serve us in the sense that it has to be a gateway for us to be able to experience what life means in all of its senses, nuances, all of its colors, call it whatever you want. But the biggest lesson I do believe was that life is in our hands. It was gifted to us for us to experience it, to breathe it in every single moment, most of all, and the rest comes after. Well, this concludes your horoscope. I do hope that you found it useful and that you enjoyed it. Thank you so very much for listening. I wish everyone a blessed week and a fantastic full moon. I hope that the trine with Uranus surprises you in the most delightful and pleasant way possible. Until next time, bye for now.